You know, there's this one question that just seems to haunt so many of us after we leave a really toxic relationship. What really happens to the narcissist? We see them on social media, looking like they've moved on, totally untouched, but is that the whole story? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the unseen reckoning that unfolds long after they're gone.
It is one of the most maddening things to see, right? One minute there's all this chaos and pain, and the next, they just seem to move on. They're posting pictures, they're in a new relationship, and they're acting like the past never even happened. For the person left behind, the one who was hurt, it just feels so deeply unfair.
And that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Does all that manipulation, all that betrayal, just vanish into thin air without a trace? Well, the answer is a hard no. Because what looks like a clean getaway is actually the beginning of something else. It's an invisible buildup, a debt that sooner or later is going to come due.
And this, right here, really gets to the core of the whole thing. See, the experiences we try to deny or bury, they don't just disappear. They sink down deep into our unconscious mind, and from that hidden place, they start to steer the ship. Our behaviors, our emotions, how we see the world. So while the narcissist might not be consciously thinking about the harm they caused, believe me, the consequences are still there, quietly gathering weight.
Okay, so right after the breakup, what's going on in their head? Well, there's this huge sense of relief and power. They genuinely believe they've won. And to make that feeling stick, they rewrite the entire story of the relationship, casting you in a role that protects their own super fragile ego. I mean, look at this. It's like two totally different movies playing at the same time. In their story, you were the weak, unstable one. And of course, they are completely irreplaceable. They're just sitting back, waiting for you to break and come crawling back. But your reality? It's the complete opposite. You're doing the quiet, hard work of rebuilding, detaching, and creating a life that doesn't revolve around them anymore.
And here's something you've got to get. This isn't just them being arrogant. It's a shield. It's a defense mechanism. Because if they ever admitted that you were valuable, that you were patient, that you invested in ways they never could, well, they'd have to face their own inadequacy. And that is the one thing they fear more than anything. So this story isn't just a story, it's essential for their psychological survival.
But here's the thing about those defenses. They're not foolproof. They can only hold up for so long before reality starts knocking at the door. And as time goes on, as you heal and thrive, reality starts to poke holes in their carefully constructed illusion.
So to really wrap our heads around this, we have to talk about something called the emotional mirror. You see, you weren't just a partner. You were a crucial part of the system that kept their internal world stable. Your reactions, your attention, your energy, all of it was like a mirror, reflecting their own importance back to them. And when that mirror vanishes, well, the whole system starts to malfunction.
And then their whole story starts to get a little shaky. They see a picture of you, or they hear from a mutual friend that you're doing well, that you're calm, stable, moving forward. And a little question they just can't ignore starts to bubble up from the depths. Wait a minute. If they were the unstable one, why do they look so peaceful now?
And it doesn't stop there. They fully expected you to fall apart, to stay attached, to need them. So your strength is a direct challenge to their core belief that they're irreplaceable. The next crack appears. If they were so weak, how are they strong enough to walk away and just build a new life? These questions become deeply unsettling for them.
So all of this internal chaos, it starts to build up into what you could call an invisible psychological debt. And this, my friends, is where the long-term consequences really start to take shape, far away from the public eye.
Think about it. Every time they burn a bridge, there's all this leftover tension and damage. The narcissist's go-to move is to just find a new person, a new distraction, to avoid dealing with it. But that tension doesn't just go away. It accumulates, kind of like a debt in their unconscious, and it quietly eats away at their ability to ever form a stable, healthy bond.
And you can actually see how this debt gets paid back over and over in this really predictable, kind of sad cycle. The new relationship high is amazing at first, but each time it gets a little shorter. The connections start to feel thinner. Pretty soon they need more and more stimulation just to feel okay. And then, inevitably, the same old destructive patterns, the suspicion, the control, they all come creeping back in, poisoning the new bond. The debt always comes due.
And eventually, after all the running and all the distractions, they hit a wall. They reach a stage that few of them ever see coming. The novelty wears off, the distractions lose their power, and they are forced into an encounter with the parts of themselves they've spent a lifetime running from.
You know, the famous psychologist Carl Jung had a perfect term for this, the shadow self. It's all the parts of ourselves we refuse to look at. For a narcissist, that shadow is jam-packed with everything they deny: their deep insecurity, their crippling fears, their profound dependency on other people for validation. It's basically everything that contradicts that flawless mask they show the world.
Now just pause and think about what that really means for a second. For that entire relationship, you were the screen they projected all their junk onto. You were the one who was too emotional. You were too needy. You were unstable. When you leave, that screen is gone, and all those ugly projections have nowhere else to go but back to the source. Now, this doesn't pop up as some big aha moment of clarity for them. Oh no, instead it shows up as this weird, confusing internal static, a vague restlessness they can't quite put their finger on, a growing sense that even when life looks good on the outside, something important is fundamentally missing. Their relationships start to feel hollow, repetitive, and empty.
So, what's the real end game here? What is the actual final cost they pay? It's not some dramatic, public downfall like we see in the movies. The reality is something much quieter, much slower, and in a lot of ways, much more profound.
The real cost, it's just limitation. By constantly, relentlessly avoiding vulnerability, avoiding responsibility, and avoiding any kind of self-reflection, the range of emotional experiences they can even have becomes smaller and more superficial. They literally trap themselves.
And this is where you can really see the two paths just completely split off from each other. For you, the pain of that relationship becomes fuel for transformation. It leads to self-awareness, to healthier boundaries. But their path, it's totally different. They just double down, reinforcing the very persona that keeps them isolated, trapping them in this endless, exhausting cycle of chasing shallow validation. Your path leads to growth. Theirs is a cycle of limitation.
At the end of the day, what they lost wasn't just another person. They lost a rare, rare opportunity. Having someone in their life who was willing to see beyond the mask, that was a chance for real growth. It was a chance to become more than the persona they were so busy protecting. And when that chance disappears, they usually retreat back into patterns that make sure they never have to face themselves again.
So when you look at it that way, their big win is really just a quiet shrinking of their own world. They lost a mirror that might have shown them a path to something deeper. And that leaves us with the most important question of all. What did you gain?